ja Euroopa põllumehed ja ühistud on loonud selleks oma katusorganisatsiooni, aga ka see vajab tarbijate usaldust. Ja sellest, millega tegeleb organisatsioon, kuidas ennast turundab ja millised on turundustegevused, räägib meile selle organisatsiooni nõunik, kes on tegelenud juba päris hulga aastaid sellega, et organisatsioon oleks nähtav ja et need tegevused, mis tehakse turunduse suunal, oleksid toeks liikmetele, liikmesorganisatsioonidele ja ettevõtetele. Umberto Di Pasquo on see mees, kes meile sellest räägib. Floor is yours.
Honorable ministers, honorable rectors, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here today in this important event with high-level and top-notch speakers. It's also great to see many young people in this audience. It's one of the great challenges that agriculture faces, the involvement of young people in the farming activities, but also the involvement of young people in the governance life of our structures. It is a very interesting event, and I'm sure I will learn a lot today because we have many academia. I'm not a marketer, but I'm a lawyer, so when I'm surrounded by academia, I'm always sure that there is something to learn, and it's a great pleasure to be here today with you. To address the topic, I will base my presentation on those elements. I will highlight the role of Copa and Cogeca, the organization I'm working for. I will give you an overview on European agricultural cooperatives across Europe, the numbers of farmers they involved. And then I will finally focus on the elements related to brand, the creation of a brand, but not to bring it to the market, but to create a brand engagement with policymakers. It will be, therefore, slightly different from the rest of the day, but I can already imagine that there will be many elements that will converge, and they are essential to bring forward the strength of agri-cooperatives across Europe, and to support their development. Copa Cogeca is the united voice of European farmers and agricultural cooperatives. We bring together 23 million European farmers and their families, together with 22,000 agricultural cooperatives. Since 1962, those two organizations work together in order to ensure that at policy level, we can have a viable, innovative, sustainable agriculture, an agri-food sector that is capable of delivering on consumer expectations. But our core objective is definitely to defend the interests of our enterprises, defend the interests of farmers, and influence the EU policymakers. Our Brussels office is made up of 50 staff members, and our office is divided in those four teams. As you can see, we deal with all the sort of activities linked to the agri-food sectors. In fact, we have a team dedicated to commodities and trade, another one that is more general, but which deal with the critical topics that are affecting our sectors today, including environmental policies, research and innovation, plant and animal health and welfare, and sustainable consumption. We have an administration team. We work in 6 different languages, in English, French, Italian, German, Polish, and Spanish. And the directors of those teams converge in the team of the Secretary General, where we proceed with a sort of coordination of the whole policies. I'm personally in the team of the Secretary General, Mr. Pekka Pessonen, and as you can see, we also lead all the policy activities on key policy developments important for our sectors. So the future of the CAP, the implementation, the food chain initiatives, and so on. This chart resumes how we work. The force of our organization is the involvement of our organization and the experts coming from the member states. We have 45 working parties dealing with sectorial issues where farmers from across Europe, together with cooperative leaders, they come, they discuss, they present their interests, and they had to come out with a common position. This common position is very difficult to reach sometimes because we have different interests at stake between member states, between farmers' organizations within a single member state, sometimes even between farmers and cooperatives. But the truth is that when we manage to achieve this common position, we have the strength of 40 million farmers and 22,000 cooperatives. After that, the position is approved in the working party. There is an element of coordination between the Copa side and the Cogeca side in the POC and CCC. I'm personally in charge of the CCC, which stands for Cooperative Coordination Committee. Within the CCC, we proceed also with exchange of best practices, and it serves also as a platform to discuss a strategic topic, including branding, including digitalization and key general and transversal issues that are affecting our sectors. Finally, the decision is taken by the Copa and the Cogeca Presidium before that we can deliver our advocacy action vis-à-vis the European institutions, so mainly the European Commission, the European Parliament, but the Council of Ministers, of course, and we have the pleasure to have the Minister with us today, and the honor. How does Copa Cogeca lobbying activity works? These slides resume a bit the legislative process of the European Union, and our lobbying action fits every single stage of this process. We design ad hoc, personalized advocacy messages in order to influence the institution involved. But today I want to discuss not really how we present amendments, we convince members of the European Parliament, or we consultate with the ministers or with the European Commission. I want to discuss something else, because our work is not only about changing legislation, but somehow is also create a brand engagement with policymakers. So somehow delivering and let properly understand the value that our structures and our cooperatives create. The second part of my presentation, as I mentioned, will focus on the overview of European agricultural cooperatives. This slide resumes all the sort of activities that agricultural cooperatives put in place from farm to fork. And we can see that our activities represent a form of smart collaboration among farmers who owns the enterprise in each link of the value chain. And this is fundamental, because in every single action we place the people at the heart of our action. And when I say people, I refer to our farmer members, the consumers, the overall society. Those are the data that we collected in Copa Cogeca in 2018, related to the development of agricultural cooperatives. And as you can see, at European level, there are some major differences in terms of numbers. One striking difference is between the Mediterranean countries, my home land, Italy, with 4,700 cooperatives, big number, compared to the Sweden or Finland, that they are less than 30 cooperatives. But numbers need to be read in, also in different ways. When it comes to the number of farmers which are involved to cooperatives, first of all, we can say that 7 million farmers are connected to cooperatives through membership affiliation. And we include also double membership, because some farmers are members of several cooperatives. And also in this respect, we see the difference between the south and the north, with big number also in Spain. Unfortunately, I don't have the data related to the Eastern European countries. But in Estonia, we have almost 2,036 members, although those data relate to 2016, so they're not data related to 2018. Which is an element very important. Sometimes we struggle in collecting data, and I think the member states should make a major effort in collecting data regarding the cooperative development and involvement of farmer members in those structures. This slide instead includes figures about the level of employment offered by agricultural cooperatives. The first things to notice is that agricultural cooperatives with their level of employment empower rural areas, because the majority of those jobs are provided in rural areas. So cooperatives play a critical role for the survival of rural areas which are more and more subject to a sort of desertification, with people living and going more and more towards the big cities. In Spain, since 2008, the year that marked the financial crisis, agricultural cooperatives increased their level of employment of 10%. This is amazing, not only because it shows the resilience of those cooperatives, but it shows the level of anti-fragility, the way how they can even gain from shocks and stress caused by crisis. A crisis that is not only economic, but is also social. When it comes to market shares, some elements already arised in the previous intervention. Overall, European Agri-Cooperatives detain the 40% of market shares in the European Union. And when it comes to sectors, the most performant sectors, actually, the most performant cooperatives operating in the sectors are working in the dairy, followed by fruit and vegetables, wine, olive oil and olives, followed by cereals, sugar, pig meat, and sheep meat. We have a recent study of the European Commission on the application of the measure on the milk package that showed that 64% of milk is delivered via or to European cooperatives. We already mentioned somehow that there is a differentiation in terms of numbers in different member states. But this differentiation applies also to the market shares that those cooperatives detain. And you can see the difference between what I mentioned before, Italy and Sweden. So why we see that in the northern and central EU member states, agricultural cooperatives detain more than the 50%. In the south, those structures, many structures, those thousands of structures, they detain only between the 25 and 50% of market shares. While in Eastern European countries, the cooperatives do not reach the 25%. This is a symptom that agricultural cooperatives in Eastern European countries need to be supported with policy measures. And that's why at the European level, in the discussion with the CAP, we're pushing towards funds that they can improve the setting and the organization of producer organization in all sectors. So there are different ways of organizing, different ways of working of agricultural cooperatives across Europe. So while in Nordic country we see high level of integration with a small number of highly specialized and large-scale agricultural cooperatives, in southern country there is an automation with an integration that it takes place, but through the creation of second-degree cooperatives, which means cooperatives with members of other cooperatives. But they still have limited economic dimension. While, as I mentioned before, in new member states, there is still a limited development and we need to push forward and we're willing to do so. And those events are fundamental to support the development of agricultural cooperatives if blended with the right political decision supported by our farmers community. An element that I would like to underline with respect to this slide and differentiation is also related to the creation of brands. Because while in northern country we see the development of strong international brands of cooperatives, in the Mediterranean country those elements is still under development. So there is a different strategy in this respect. Let's enter in the subject matter, and one critical element is related to the definition of what a brand is and why it's so hard to be defined. This is true because there's been an evolution. Pantarei, the Greek said, this applies to the brand development too. So the first brand appeared during the ancient Egyptian period where farmers used to brand their cattle. So brand is strictly linked to the agricultural value chain, and we should not forget that. But then a few centuries later, during the Industrial Revolution, another sort of branding emerged because a different business issue was supposed to be solved. Consumers were accustomed to buy locally from local merchants, and generic products created en masse need to differentiate and create an appeal with consumers. So factories borrowed the tactic that was used by winemakers to put their logo on the barrel. Again, we're still talking about agri-food sectors. And big companies like Coca-Cola started talking about brands, and they used those brands to differentiate themselves from the local production and the generic competition. There was such big investment in brands that big company needed to be defended in those investments. That's why, for instance, in United States in 1875, the Trademark Registration Act was created. In the end of the 50s and the 60s, what advertiser calls the golden age of advertising, For me, I'm not a marketer, but I'm a customer in this respect, for me is the Mad Men era. I think about the famous TV series. Companies start using emotional messaging, and somehow they start using even some multisensual branding with the usage of television. Jingles were added to their brand developments. In 1984, Apple changed the branding game again, and we can see that companies start promoting more the brand rather than the product and services that they were selling. For instance, Marlboro, the cigarettes, is one of the examples. This element allowed the company also to differentiate their activities and putting on the market different products. But today is another era. Today consumers are less impressed by brands, especially in the agri-food sectors. Consumers across Europe, they care about price, quality, safety, and environmental impact. So it became essential for us to develop a brand storytelling that they have one key objective, is to create trust. As the rector underlined, trust is fundamental. It takes years to build, it takes seconds to lose it, a crisis, and we lost the brand, and it takes forever to repay. The good news is that European consumer trust farmers, while they show a bit less trust with regards to processors and distributors. While the industry benchmark, you can see, is still quite high compared to, if we compare the processors with the automotive industries, well, there is a big difference. This is also confirmed by a Eurobarometer report of 2017. Unfortunately, I'm not sure you can see very well, but 69% trust farmers, 36% trust food industry. Here the key point is that our cooperatives are a food industry too. We add value, we process too. So a key element that we need to retain is that to differentiate ourselves, we need to come back possibly to the element of ownership and make sure that cooperatives are perceived by the public as cooperative owned by farmers, so that we can use the trust that the public, the stakeholders retain in regards to the farmers. And we have to tell them what consumers want to hear. Consumers want to hear about quality, proximity, traceability, consumption habits, especially related to the climate challenges. They want to hear about corporate social responsibilities. They want to hear about food safety. And those elements become the key element that policymakers want to hear more and more, and on which we need to focus on when we put in place our lobbying action. Here I report some elements which give us a perspective of what's happening around the globe, with some cooperatives that they strongly affirm the element of ownership, from Quebec to United States to New Zealand to Australia. While in this slide, we present some elements coming from old good Europe, where the element of ownership is still promoted. For instance, Les Gusans, French cooperatives, were clearly stated cooperative by nature. It's a very strong mantra, I would say. But they use the word cooperatives because the society is fully aware of what the cooperative is and the level of engagement of the farmers in the enterprises. while in Scotland, Rowan Glen places it strictly forward that the company is owned by dairy farmers. Benna is a cooperative from Malta. Their main message is not only related to the ownership, and so our company is owned by farmers, but it also strictly related to the quality that they can deliver. Being a farmer's owner, we can deliver higher quality. You know for sure the case of Valio. And then we have the last one, which is developed by Arla. As you can see, Arla doesn't mention his name. There is no name. The message is underlined here is this is produced by farmers. We produce a high quality milk, and we can ensure quality from cow to your glass. But things are going even further. Finnish cooperative Atria is putting the name of the farmers and the location where the meat was produced. What I presented is not disconnected at all by my actual job, which is a lobbyist. Because the biggest pitfall of today is the fact that as a lobbyist, we have to react quickly to crisis. Every day we have a crisis in our sectors. And so our lobbying action are really like straightforward, and I can possibly define as lobbying right now. So every day there is something we need to deliver on a crisis that is happening in our sectors. But our job as a lobbyist, as I mentioned before, it also consists in educating legislators. We are in a specific moment in which we just elected a new European Parliament. The 60% of the members of the European Parliament are new. The majority of them do not have connection at all with the agri-food sectors. They don't know about our activity. They don't know about the challenges that farmers encounter in the field. And the same applies to the value created by agricultural cooperatives. So that's why we need to communicate our competitive advantage as an agricultural cooperative, starting from the value offer, and communicating the features that agricultural cooperative has in terms of what we are, but also about perceived benefits, which is about the benefits that farmers, owners have, but also the benefits that overall society can gain from agricultural cooperatives. We need to explain also not only the process benefits, but also the outcome benefits. We need to explain that through agricultural cooperatives, not only we can deliver high quality food, not only we can support farmers in reinforcing their position in the food supply chain, but we need to also explain that thanks to cooperatives, additional revenue streams can be created and additional investment can be created to support bioeconomy, to drive the transformation of the sectors when it comes to digitalization, and so on. But finally, the most important part is to explain the needs. And I'm not referring this time to the needs of farmers. I'm referring to the needs of policymakers. Policymakers need to perceive agricultural cooperatives in terms of value developed for their policy that they need to work on. So we need to let them discover that agricultural cooperative serves policy needs. And by the way, that particular policy needs is completely aligned with our business model and can be helpful for reaching the objective of the European and public authorities. So only in this way they can appreciate our competitive advantage. A competitive advantage that consists in the cooperative difference, a cooperative difference that we can explain thanks to the explanation of the purpose of our structures, presenting basic fact, example, case studies, key statistics, as I mentioned before, and the relevance of agricultural cooperatives for farmers, the community, and the environment. Since the start of the mandate of the Juncker Commission, it was clear that the European Union was working to mainstream sustainable development in its policies, and Juncker Commission has already laid down the ground for the next generation of sustainable policies. It's clear, and we had to look at this fact as the reality, and we are aware of the fact that the Commission presented a long-term strategy with a vision for a prosperous, modern, competitive, but also climate-neutral EU economy. So we know that with those objectives, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are key drivers for policy developments in the European Union, in all sectors, including agriculture and food. Therefore, when it comes to the so-called what is for me, for the policymakers, it is essential that we align our brand attributes to those goals, because it can be useful to let policymakers explain better what is the role of agricultural cooperatives in the European Union. And for this reason, we need to align the purpose, the vision, the strategy of European agricultural cooperatives and our brand attributes to those United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are so wide. They start from no poverty, and we imagine, okay, we are fighting poverty. But poverty is not only like economic poverty. Poverty is also related to the fact that our farmers, they don't have the time to get sick. They have to go on farm if they get sick. They don't have the time to go on holiday. This is a form of poverty that we need to combat. They go to climate action, sustainable consumption, so fight to the food waste and so on. Those goals are completely aligned to every policy development related to the agri-food sectors. And in this respect, agricultural cooperatives can play a key role if rightly supported by the European institution. We are already supporting the achievement of those goals, but we can do better. So we need to communicate the following attributes. We need to communicate what is at the heart of our existence, which is the why European agri-cooperatives exist. We need to communicate the vision, which represents what we want to achieve in a reasonable time frame. Is the goal that we finally want to achieve as a Farmers United in agricultural cooperatives. We need to communicate the strategic and operational priorities, which are the actions that we want to put in place to achieve our goals. The brand promises, so what we promise to our farmers, what we promise to the community, the rural community, to the consumers, and what we promise to stakeholders, including regulators and policymakers. All accompanied by the core values of the cooperatives, which are the principles that dictate what agricultural cooperatives stand for in good and in bad times. For this reason, at Copa Cogeca, we've been working to do so. by developing some messages that they seem to be quite simple and obvious, but you won't believe me, but many policymakers newly elected at European Parliament are not aware of what agri-cooperative exist. European agri-cooperative exists to allow farmers to do those things that they cannot do by themselves, basic stuff like that. Since their establishment, the purpose of agricultural cooperatives is to respond to the members' needs, fine. But then sometimes it's not considered that those needs are democratically expressed during the governance life of our enterprises. Agricultural cooperatives are created to pool farmers' resources in certain area of activity and provide services, advices, services which are not strictly linked to the agricultural world, but also additional services that help farmers to have a more decent life. While marketing the agricultural produce and processed food, we also engage in transportation, packaging, distribution. So our purpose is to be definitely efficient and create economy of scales. But what is the vision of European agricultural cooperatives? Sorry. The vision is to ensure sustainability and competitiveness of the sectors by serving the farmers' needs and understanding the consumer demands. And here comes an element really important for the development of the brand. While the primary objective is definitely to support farmers in getting better return for their produce, to position better themselves in the food supply chain, agri-cooperatives pool the existing processing assets and they keep them in the hands of their farmer owners. That's why we look favorable at those consolidation process among cooperatives, mergers that allow to create additional economy of scales. And I'm aware of a recent merger between an Estonian cooperative who proceeded with an international merger with another cooperative, a transnational cooperative that's been created. Our top 3 strategic and operational priorities is definitely to continue empowering farmers by providing tools to thrive in a circular, resilient, and innovative agricultural economy, to be anti-fragile and therefore resilient, to create value-added economy of scales and increase market position through the consolidation. I was talking about the promises that we can make. We definitely can design tomorrow agriculture. We are data savvy and consumers aware, so therefore we are committed to design tomorrow agriculture and food citizens with the top-notch quality food, which is not only good to see, but is also good to taste. But then a key element is to keep rural areas vibrant and community dynamic, to boost job and growth, and to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, and to help the agriculture to be not only economical, but also social and environmental sustainable. Our core values are dictated by the International Alliance of Cooperatives. As you know, we have voluntary and open membership. There is a democratic member control, members' economic participation. There is autonomy and independence of the cooperatives. We provide education, training, and information to our members, which is a key challenge that we face at European level. The lack of skills that our farmers will face in the future, it is already huge. It will be even bigger if we consider the demographic curve together with the lack of skills. That's why we need to strictly monitor the skills gap that is in the sectors and develop the right training that our cooperatives can develop. And we need the support of the university, scientists, we need the support of policymakers, but the agricultural cooperatives are in the position to bring this gap between university and the field, especially if we create consortium and we work together in research and development projects. And that's what we do, and we support at European level by trying to involve our members in research projects under Horizon 2020 and the future Horizon Europe. But then there are also additional principles: self-help, equality, solidarity, market orientation, which is fundamental. We are not like NGOs. We need to create market. We need to be economically sustainable. Social responsibilities and transparency. So the value proposition is a clear statement that explains how agri-cooperatives can solve a pain point. I am aware of the fact that there is a presentation based on pain. Let's see what are the pains that we need to solve. And we need to communicate the specific added value and benefits that we can create, which is basically the reason why agri-cooperatives are better than competitors. So we have here a unique value proposition to propose to policymakers. We are the democratic tool empowering farmers to go from the land to the market, anticipating market needs. To do so, recently we launched a campaign which is called 17 Reasons to COP. So, as you can imagine, this campaign is completely linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And we explain to policymakers how agricultural cooperatives, forest cooperatives achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I must say that in less than 1 month, we managed to collect more than 100 cases that show how agricultural cooperatives can tickle all the boxes, and they put in place action to achieve those goals. They're doing right here and right now. Cooperatives are doing that, and they can do even better if better supported at policy level. In the website, which is called the 17 Reasons to COP, there are also some videos. Unfortunately, I'm aware of the fact that there is a technical problem, and I wanted to show those videos. One video is of Commissioner Hogan, the Commissioner for Agriculture, who will become the Commissioner for Trade, which deliver a message on agricultural cooperatives. And we can see how, after the launch of our campaign, after our brand management in terms of lobbying branding, Commissioner organs start using the same value proposition that our farmers are able to provide. And the same applies to members of the European Parliament. I'm very sorry that we cannot see those videos today, but we'll forward the PowerPoint presentation so that can be distributed to all of you. And whenever you need additional information, please don't hesitate to enter in contact with me. And during the coffee break, I'm willing to exchange with all of you. And I would like to thank you once again for organizing such important event. Allow me to speak from a different perspective. And now let's open the dances with marketing to market, because I really want to learn a lot. Thank you very much.